Age of Fission radio show with your host, Lonnie Clark. We stand together and accept that we now live in a world transformed by Fukushima. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UCY.TV radio. We relentlessly engage every ear that listens. We expose and confront the complete lack of accountability for the nuclear industry. Consider social engineering programs who view our bodies, minds, and souls as assets on a balance sheet. We discuss vital current issues, interview activists, and engage our audience in an effort to allow all voices to be heard. The Age of Fission radio show creates a venue that all will choose. We encourage our listeners to reclaim their power and their courage to take action and save our planet from the ravages of greed and indifference. Our actions matter. Every voice matters. We remind our listeners that happiness is resistance. Love is greater than fear.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Age of Fission radio show, and my name is Barry Prince. And going forward, I am going to be sitting in for Lonnie on Friday mornings. Maybe even give Lonnie a 3-day weekend. Wouldn't that be kind of cool? I've been listening to Lonnie now for about a year and a half. I've been tuning into her shows, and I really admire her dedication to exposing this critical information to the human race about the potential disasters we're looking at with the nuclear regulatory industry and the nuclear power industry in general. It's one subject that when I was asked to talk about, I just jumped on the opportunity because it's something that absolutely drives me insane. And hopefully people really start waking up to what's going on with the industry and what the potential for the future is for the human race. I just met a gentleman this week, and when I first started talking to him, I really got a feel for his passion about what he's talking about when it comes to nuclear power. I'm joined by Rex Bear of the Leak Project, and I don't know a whole lot about everything he's doing, but I had to look at his website, and we're going to talk today basically about nuclear power and some of the results that he's got. I'm going to let you tell him exactly what you've been doing, Rex, because I'm not 100% up on it. But thanks for joining me today, buddy, and I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Right on. It's an honor to be here. Thank you so much. And the Leak Project, I started up about 2 years ago just to help people get news that they're not going to find in the mainstream. There's 6 corporations that control about 90% of the media. So a lot of the nuclear stuff, I've been following the nuclear industry big time since Fukushima event happened in 2011. And there was a lot of chatter on the net about how everybody was going to die, the whole world was going to be destroyed because of that plutonium MOX mixture that was put into one of the Fukushima plants before it went into meltdown. And so, it made me nervous. I started doing a lot of research, and I picked up a Geiger counter. It's actually a pretty nice watch. It was about $1,500 that I can constantly keep track of the radiation levels. And when I picked up the watch, I picked it up in 2013, and I live in San Antonio. And the levels would be anywhere from 0.06 to 0.08, but most of the time it stayed at 0.07 microsieverts per hour, which is pretty dang low. 0.07 microsieverts per hour is pretty dang low. Well, I flew to Alaska that year. I hate to fly. The only time I flew, I actually put 60,000 miles on my car in 2013 because I was just doing so much traveling with my work, and I had an opportunity to check the rad levels in almost every state because everywhere I went I had this watch. Well, when I flew, the levels went from 0.07 to 4.2 microsieverts per hour. So to put that into perspective, when I flew to Alaska, the radiation levels went up 60 times. It was just crazy. So that really kind of put things into perspective for me. And whether or not that was from the Fukushima isotopes, or whether or not that was from the stars and the sun and how high we were with the elevation, I can get that. Maybe it was a combination of all. But you don't hear a lot about pilots and flight attendants as far as their threat levels go with the radiation that they're exposed to, because they're constantly frying themselves. So, but one thing that I do want to point out is I have noticed since 2013 when I picked up my Geiger counter, and I've had this thing calibrated twice since then, the levels have gone up consistently and are now up 50% on a regular basis or more than what they were in 2013. So it's been like this slow increase, this slow boil, and we are the frogs in the boiling pot right now, ladies and gentlemen. 76% of the atmosphere has been depleted by stratospheric aerosol injections, and that, I think, is also causing more radiation to come in as well. So not to mention they put nuclear reactors over fault lines and high seismic activity zones, which seems to be very odd, doesn't it?
To say the least. That's one study that I did myself, Rex. I punched up on the computer every known and active nuclear power plant on the Earth today, and then you can do the same search on every known and active fault line on the planet Earth today. When you do that search, you're going to fall right off your chair. The first time I did it, I was just dumbfounded to the fact that I think it's close to like 80% of all the nuclear power plants on the planet today are in direct striking zones of either a major fault line or really susceptible tsunamis. We know these events are going to happen. So we're kind of like putting a little needle in the big bubble right now, the way I see it. We have, in my opinion, Rex, honestly, the human race really, really, really has to wake up to this, and I think it should be a monumental effort right now to eliminate it from the planet Earth. However that's going to be done is a huge question. I know what's going on inside of nuclear power dumps. I've really studied Hanford very closely now. I look at every nuclear facility that I've looked at are having scrams or having major problems. And we're only 70 years into the proliferation of nuclear power. What's going to come in the next 20, Rex? That's what really boggles my mind. Go ahead.
Well, you've got 40-year shelf lives on these reactors that are built until they extend them. And think about it for a minute, folks. A 40-year shelf life on isotopes that can last millions, hundreds of millions of years. And now one of the new, I've noticed, whether this is just people that are ignorant or there's actually paid agents to leave certain comments and videos, or a combination of two. I would say most likely a combination of two. The new thing is, radiation, it's all a hoax. Oh, nuclear bombs, it's all a hoax. Look at this guy. He drank plutonium and swam in uranium, and he's just fine. Well, that guy died of throat cancer, ladies and gentlemen. And please tell that to the poor victims and the poor people and animals and even that were exposed to massive radiation leaks. And tell that to the people that have died of cancer. Tell that to the people that have giant body parts because of the exposure. Like literally it's puffed up their body to where they're deformed. And I would really like to see those people have a conversation with somebody that's had serious effects from it. It's really sad and unfortunate. And I don't know how people in that industry that know all the cause and effects, how they sleep at night. But I think the thing is, the world that we live in is so good at compartmentalizing things. And even at the higher levels where you would think, okay, well, that person's the director of alphabet agency, so you'd think he would know everything. Even that guy is compartmentalized to an extent. And these industries that make billions of dollars, they find ways to pitch their marketing ploy to not only, to sell their product to the Congress and the lawmakers and to the people, and then they get the lobbyists out there. And I wonder how the nuclear industry survives because of the billions and billions and billions of dollars it takes to clean this stuff up. Well, come to find out, even the radioactive waste, the nuclear waste that's stored in like cat litter, ladies and gentlemen, they store nuclear waste in cat litter. Think about that. You brought up the Hanford site. The Hanford site was one of the main locations that extracted plutonium from uranium for the weapons in World War II and our military. Most of our weapons that have plutonium, that's where it came from. Well, just a couple months ago, there was a haul that was close to that nuclear extraction site where they pulled out plutonium from uranium, where they extracted that and caused that process. Well, guess what? One of the halls collapsed. And they're like, oh, well, you know, it's no big deal. It just happens, you know, just 2x4s and stuff. It's like, really? Plutonium extraction points? They're saying it's not a big deal. And that makes me wonder. I mean, while I'm thinking about this real quick, don't you ever get worried, Barry, about some type of Stuxnet virus or something that, or maybe some type of disgruntled ex-employee or maybe some psychopath or some terrorist that would use these nuclear reactors for a tool for them to get? I remember reading an article that came out a few years ago where supposedly there were certain nuclear reactor sites that some terrorists were planting bombs. And then they had them remote controlled so that they could then keep those people at that site prisoner and say, okay, if you don't follow my demands, well, then we're gonna go ahead and just push the button. So there needs to be, first of all, more security at these sites, and second of all, isn't there a technology that can actually take that take the spent fuel and convert it into something that's not toxic? But then they outlawed that, or the patent was bought in the '60s or something, and then it disappeared.
You know, Rex, I'm actually a group of people that I'm involved with. I believe Lonnie's actually had Shaziz, and I think Lonnie's had Larry Woods on her show before. And, you know, these people have ideas and ways of disposing of nuclear waste that if we could expose it to the human race, like Shaziz is a gentleman that I absolutely have a ton of respect for. And there is ways to actually convert nuclear waste into energy. You've got to realize that you have energy. You have energy in spent nuclear waste, and there is a way to convert it into energy. And if that was brought forward to the public, that would be part of solving the problem we have with nuclear waste. I see going forward the biggest problems we're going to have is spent nuclear waste, and of course all the problems that are coming. I mean, you talk about a terrorist attack on a nuclear power plant. You know, if you really wanted to look at a incredibly doomsday scenario, all we'd have to do is let on an EMP over top of the United States of America and knock out the power grid. Of course, they've got backups, but eventually those backups are going to fail. And how many meltdowns are we going to see across the world, across the state? I mean, how many nuclear power plants are there in the United States? I believe there's 278 of them operating right now, Rex. I'm going by memory, but I looked at the numbers. I think it's 278 operating. And about 80% of those are in direct striking range of major geological fault lines. So we're really living, this is absolute insanity. To me, there is nothing more important than waking people up to the insanity of this. Because you know what? We do have the answers. Right now, free energy is a reality. And anybody who doesn't believe that isn't looking at it. We have ways of generating power that we could completely eliminate the need for nuclear power. And that's my cry to the human race, buddy, because I look 20 years down the road and I go, holy smokes, what are my children going to be living in? And like you said, right now, we're living in a nuclear bath. We look at the rises in thyroid cancer in children. I was reading a study on that, and I'm going, wow, can't people see the correlation? Our children are paying an incredible price right now for our ignorance. Go ahead, Rex.
Well, did you know that the Olympics in 2020, they're going to play baseball in Fukushima? Talk about home run, baby. Home run. And here's another thing that I'm thinking of right now. They're actually doing tours right now. They are doing literally tours, field trips. School children are going to Fukushima, checking the area out. They're getting close to the different reactors, and they've actually got people out there taking photo shoots without much gear on. And you can see the Geiger counters are like 187 microsieverts per hour. Then if you go inside of one of those facilities, the radiation levels are so high that
kill you in 2 minutes.
Robots can't even take it. But it's good for you. It's all just conspiracy, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, just ask the people on the internet. They'll tell you, as they speak French and bench press 500 pounds, they will tell you that nuclear, it's all just a hoax, it's all just a conspiracy, and the earth is flat. I had to throw that out there because people aren't.
Yeah, the earth is flat. I can't believe that people actually pay attention to that. Yeah, I know, and I still laugh about it. But you know what? Believe it or not, people that I almost consider like intelligent people actually believe the Earth is flat. And I go, wow, buddy, I'm going to sell you a bridge.
Well, there are, here, that's another thing too, is the media and the alternative media and the mainstream media and organizations similar to the Tavistock Institute are very good at manipulating people's minds. And you know what? I can appreciate people that are out there saying there's something wrong with the world today, things aren't right, and we're being lied to. Yet sometimes when you ask the solid questions, they don't have an answer, but then they can ask you questions that unless you know how to do all the physics and math and you've gone to school to say exactly how the Earth is it's not a square, it's not flat, it's actually circular in motion. Well, but anyway, but I can appreciate them. And there are very intelligent people that think that. It's just that there's so many different faucets out there that are really working hard on keeping us, the people, in confusion.
Divided. Yeah, divided.
Yeah, divided.
Of course.
So what do we do about it as a collective whole when we realize that the mind is mightier than the pen and the pen is mightier than the sword? How do we get together collectively as a whole and actually change these industries? Because if it isn't nuclear, what do? Oh, well, then they'll use coal and they'll blow off the mountaintop. They'll blow up mountains for coal, or they'll frack the planet and pull out the lifeblood for petroleum. So it's like every aspect, whether it's nuclear or petroleum, why don't we do something that actually works? One thing that I really like about what Germany did after Fukushima is they went and spent $55 billion on a solar setup where they can actually, and even solar is kind of primitive, but at the same time, it's a heck of a lot better opportunity than the petroleum stuff and especially the nuclear stuff. I mean, talk about the biggest, if you really think about it, folks, 449 nuclear reactors around the world with radioactive isotopes that have shelf lives of hundreds of thousands of years that are extremely detrimental on biology and life. What happens when they don't get power? Like you said, what happens if there's one EMP? Or what happens if North Korea does something stupid? Or what happens if there's just some crazy person behind the scenes that does something stupid? And then there's this domino effect. The sooner we do something about this, the better. The longer we keep our heads in the sand, the closer we are to a serious catastrophe, in my opinion.
I couldn't agree with you, Rex, more, because really I look at it right now as we have a window of opportunity. I still believe that window exists. I don't want to be a doomsdayer and say we're doomed, but reality says that if we don't address this issue now, because we see the effects worldwide, anybody that doesn't see the effects isn't paying attention. I mean, I study the death of animals. I study the effects on our oceans, things that I really, really look at hard every day of my life. I try to get this information from reliable sources. I try and vet every piece of information I look at. And you know what? I've come to the conclusion, sure, there's a lot of bullcrap out there, but there's a lot of truth out there. And if 50% of what I see is going on in my planet right now, 50% of it, we as a species are looking at extinction level events. And that will come if we don't eliminate nuclear power off the planet. And I honestly believe that with every bit of my fiber. Really, like I said, Rex, we only got to look maybe 20 years into the future. Like you said, every nuclear power plant now seems to be having problems. There's scrams every day. If you go to the scram reports, it'll absolutely boggle your mind. We talk about the doomsday scenarios. We've talked about 3 or 4 of them. Sure, that would be an ideal target for a terrorist, wouldn't it? To attack a nuclear power plant close to a major U.S. city. Boy, that would sure achieve their goals. But we have such a soft underbelly in the United States of America with our nuclear power plants, with our power grids, are really soft and very, very susceptible to an attack. So the insanity of nuclear power is something that I don't like to talk about because it's negative, but in the same mouthful, we have to talk about this, guys. We do. And we do have the solutions, Rex. We really do. I mean, one of the things that I talk about, and I'm very, very passionate about, is, of course, cannabis/hemp, and what it can do to offset everything that we see going on the planet. Would actually detoxify the planet if it was embraced worldwide in a massive scale. That is the challenge to the human race. I think the future of our children should be the priority in anybody's mind. It's more important than a new car or a nice house. None of that is going to mean poop in the future if we don't have a planet that supports life. Where else are we going to go, Rex? Have you got your reservation on Mars, buddy?
Yes, I do. I was one of the first ones, actually. So I knew you were going to ask me that, and I was Here's the thing. It's interesting you brought that up because just yesterday I read an article that said Elon Musk is going to have a city on Mars. He's going to help spearhead a city to Mars, and 1 million people are going to be there in the next 40 years. Now, I personally believe that is a possibility. And maybe I grew up in that Star Trek, Star Wars, genre. I get it. People can give me a hard time about it. Yet I look at that as being the next front, because right now, we look at technology. Well, let's go back 100 years to think of an F-35. Well, I shouldn't use F-35 because those things keep breaking in the air and they're $100 million copies. But, if you used a jet 100 years ago, they'd say no way. 200 years ago, no way. So I certainly feel that might be the next level. But you know what? I think we need to focus on here. We need to focus on how to fix planet Earth, not Mars, because we're not there yet. So I appreciate that. But Earth's awesome. That's another thing, too, as I was thinking about, what if we reincarnate? What if? What if we reincarnate back here? Do you want to come back here and be plugged into some titanium alloy suit because you can't go outside for more than 10 seconds because you'll fry to death from pollution and aluminum being sprayed in the atmosphere and radioactive isotopes from all the explosions from it's crazy. And people are like, well, I don't care because I've got a diet soda and I can sit down and I can watch reality TV and my bills are paid, so I don't need to worry about it.
Absolutely. The hockey game is on, so what can be wrong, man? And of course, buddy, look at now, if there's something wrong. Anything that's going to go wrong, the government will look after. They would never allow anything to happen to us that's negative. And anything that comes up, buddy, the government will look after. So don't worry about it, okay? It's all good. Watch your hockey game, drink your beer, go to work, pay your taxes, and shut up. Don't look over here because there's nothing to see. It drives me absolutely insane. Lex, it really does. Why people can't wake up to what the most important issue in our life should be. Really, our legacy is, I look at what we're leaving for our children, and all I see is just one big pile of poop. I look at what we're doing to this planet right now. This planet has been an incredible mechanism that's survived for millions of years, a true creation of the Creator. And look what we've done in the last 100, 120, 130, 140 years since the onslaught of the Industrial Revolution. We haven't progressed, guys. We've regressed. And what we're leaving for our children is something I don't even want to think about, Rex. And so that's why you're doing what you're doing. I know that. Why Lonnie's doing what she's doing. We're trying to talk common sense to people that really we need to get involved. It's not just sharing links on the internet or talking about it. We need to actively get involved. This conversation should be had at every coffee table, every dinner table, in every house in the world right now. That's the urgency of what I see. And yet people just carry on like nothing's going to happen, Rex. I don't know what the answer is. I know our society has become so divided and so out of touch with each other that whether we can come together universally on a subject like this, that I don't have the answer for, my friend. I wish I did. But that's what's going to take, buddy. I'd like to see every vacant field on the planet Earth right now covered with industrial hemp. I would like to see all our industries switch from oil-based industries to a hemp-based industries because the carbon imprint would go away, the chemical imprints would go away. It's just everything about cannabis, which has been used in human history and world history for thousands of years and was just taken away from us, 60, 70 years ago by the demonization of it. Really, people have to look at history. They have to look why this plant was put on the earth, why we have cannabinoid receptors in our bodies when we're born, why it is so compatible to the human body. Everything about it could change our world. And I see that as one of the most viable answers that the human race could actually embrace right now. We need answers, buddy, because we are looking at some very, very serious problems. And I believe that is one of the biggest answers we can embrace. Go ahead.
Sure. And also I have heard of that sunflowers are really good for radiation as well. I heard that they used a bunch of those out in the Chernobyl area. And
it
also,
detoxified the soil.
Okay. And there's also something called the Hutchison effect, where I've actually seen this in play. This guy named John Hutchison created these frequencies in this tech. I think anybody can do it. You just need to have the blueprints for it now. And this frequency, he was blasting out in like a speaker or something over water that had a bunch of it was from, when was it, back in the Gulf oil disaster. And they've also used this with radiation too. But he was blasting this frequency out in this water that was all nasty from the oil spill, and they were spraying core exit, which is even worse than the oil. And
Exactly.
this frequency actually cleared up the water. And they've also been using this frequency to test offsetting the nuclear radiation's effects. And I'm wondering if something like that at a global scale, because if you really look at things, everything breaks down into frequency. And these radioactive isotopes emit certain frequencies as well. So with all of the cell phone towers, satellites, high antenna emitters that either emit information or receive information, maybe on a global scale do some type of frequency manipulation, kind of like somatics. If you look at somatics, you can have a couple of Tibetan bowls and have certain water in them and hit the bowls, and then it'll turn sand into certain patterns if you've got sand on a piece of paper or something. Maybe do something like that to offset those radioactive isotopes. Maybe we need to do more research into frequency manipulation, kind of like with that Hutchinson effect. And also zeolite is very effective in powder form from attaching to a lot of these radioactive isotopes and metals and either pulling it out of the body or using it to offset some of the effects on soil as well. So I'm surprised they're not just dumping zeolite out there in Fukushima in certain places, because that might be just tons of it.
Yeah.
Have you heard of zeolite?
Actually, my buddy has actually talked about zeolite and how it got offset. He actually wrote a letter to the Japanese government. He wrote a letter to the American government about zeolite and its effects on nuclear isotopes. And of course, he never got a response from either one of them. But yeah, I'm quite familiar with that. You're about the third or fourth person that's talked to me about it, Rex. So it is obviously a viable alternative. Cannabis too. Also, there's 2 peer-reviewed studies now that I can send you on the effects of industrial grade cannabis or hemp / whatever you want to call it. It's 2 varieties of the same plant, but when it's grown on soil that's been contaminated with nuclear isotopes, the root systems on cannabis / hemp go deep into the earth, and it releases microbes that normal plant growth never release out of the soil. And they have found that these microbes attack and kill nuclear isotopes. And those studies are out there. So when we think about it, we're suffering from radiated soil all across the earth. It could be alleviated by mass production of industrial hemp. That hemp, when it's finished, boy, we can start building all our houses with it, Rex. You know, I said one of the things that of course, like I told you, a lot of my conversation is really focused on cannabis because it has answers just to about, I think, 80% of the problems we face today on the planet, if it was embraced. And one of the things, I'm only going to touch on this real quickly, but I tell people, I say, hey, how would you like to build a house? And 50 generations from now, or 30 generations from now, that house would look like the day it was built. You'd be able to pass it through your family for 30 generations. During that 30 generations, they would never have to worry about the house burning. They would never have to worry about the effects of black mold, because hempcrete will never, ever create black mold. Black mold is a major problem in our society. Anywhere you have moisture between 2 contact points of wood, it can be a brand new house. Moisture will find its way in somewhere. You'll have black mold started. Well, hempcrete will never ever produce black mold. It can be exposed to water and expel that water 1,000 times with no effects on the board. Well, it's absolutely a no-brainer that we should be implementing this worldwide. You think about the millions of lives and the millions of dollars and the firefighters' lives that would be saved if our society was building with hempcrete. Firefighters wouldn't have to go into a house to save children because the house won't burn, guys. Well, is that a no-brainer? And that's just one aspect of it, Rex. It is such a common sense answer to all our problems. Go ahead.
You know, it's interesting also because I heard back in the day when they made hemp illegal, it was because DuPont and other organizations got together and said, well, if this stays legal, then our patents on plastic won't really be valid. We won't make the kind of money we want. That was kind of the overall thing. But also the fact you brought up, it can be used as like a fuel source for cars and vehicles as well. That makes me think of the biofuels that are used. And I know people in the Northwest that actually have old VW buses that they've converted, that are diesels, that they've converted to run off of cooking oil. And they can literally go get cooking oil behind a building that's in the dumpster. You know, people throw that stuff away. They've got special dumpsters for it, and they can use it to power their vehicles. I remember when I was in Tacoma, Washington many years ago, I was bicycling downtown out there, and I was behind one of the buses, and it smelled like popcorn because it was using the 5% biodiesel mixture. So like I like where you're going with that possibility, because the corn that they grow to use for biodiesel, it actually, the hemp would be a lot more effective. I feel it'd probably be a lot better on the environment, and they could use less chemicals. I don't think you should use chemicals anyway. I think you should do organic, but they could probably have less. They wouldn't have to have as much personnel there, I should say, keeping it up if it's hemp. But I just don't know enough about it. I'm not a botanist, so you know a lot more about this than I do.
Yeah, and of course, I always get people like telling me that when we've gone over a million times, and we've heard it, and get people commenting in chat that we've gone over this years ago. Yeah, right. Well, you know what, buddy? It is the answer. It really is. I'm going to get out of chat because I don't need to listen to that crap. But you know what? Really, if we embrace it and bring it into society the way it was meant to be used, we would see catastrophic changes in society. What else do we have for an answer? Are we going to depend on them to come up with answers, to create more products, to create more chemicals, to create more drugs to give us, more vaccines to give us, more chemicals, more stuff in our sky, more chemicals in our food? I mean, every aspect of anything to do with society seems to be an attack on the human body. I mean, if we look at GMOs, I mean, that's a subject that blows my mind. We look at the aspect of chemtrailing and what they're doing and what they're spraying in our skies and the effect of that on our biosphere and what it's doing to people's lungs. I watched them in a little town called Smithers on Sunday. 27 planes went over my head in about a 3-hour period. Well, at 6:30 in the morning, the sky was absolutely blue, not a cloud in the sky. By 11 o'clock, the sky was a complete haze. And people can't see this, and I just go, what the heck are you guys thinking? How far has society been controlled? It blows me away, Rex, every aspect. I mean, vaccines, we're going to be airing the movie Vaxxed here in Terrace next month. And I've already had a tremendous response from people that want to see the movie. Everywhere it's being played, it is being sold out, and it's gone viral. So there's a good tool in your little toolbox, Rex. You've probably seen the movie.
Well, Vaxxed is another, in my opinion. Vaccines are one of the biggest clandestine weapons of mass destruction of all time. Now, let me respond to that and give you my reasoning for my opinion. If you look at the inserts, if you actually read the inserts of what's in most of the vaccines, and I've read virtually every insert that's available, it is absolutely scary. Formaldehyde, aluminum, thimerosal.
Mercury. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the good stuff. They actually put in they put in different animal DNA. They put in monkey cells. They put in aborted baby cells. Well, what does that mean? That means they're putting dead babies, literally, in vaccines and injecting them into other babies with poisonous cocktails and saying that if you don't give your child a vaccine, then your child can't be publicly indoctrinated in a California school. I mean, this is just mind-boggling. So you're right. They will get you with genetically modified food. They'll get you with genetically modified E. coli feces disguised as a sweetener with low calorie, or they'll get you with stratospheric aerosol injections, which has got all sorts of – they spray thorium, and I've got the patents on this. They spray thorium in the atmosphere. There is a chemical they're spraying in the atmosphere that is actually it is banned on an international treaty, and they say that it's okay. So they love us so much, ladies and gentlemen. They love us so much that you pick your poison. It's your opportunity.
Yeah, it's really important that people actually go to these websites and look at this information, because I have, and you're absolutely correct. And what vaccines is to me is just genocide on the human race. I've looked at it for many years now, and I say kudos to the people that produce Vax, because what it does, folks, it really brings to your attention absolute undeniable corruption at the highest levels of government agencies that are mandated to protect us. And of course, that opens up a Pandora's box of questions if they're covering up information on the MMR vaccine and what it did to children under the 18 months when administered. What other information are they quashing? Really, I think that the box is opening on this, and people are starting to pay attention. Like I said, I've had tremendous response. We're going to air it on the 29th of July at the R.M. Lee Theater in Terrace here. And we're going to have a good turnout, I feel. A lot of people in the community want to see it.
That's awesome. Have you heard of X100?
Sorry
to interrupt. Have you heard of X100?
Yeah, I have.
It's a heavy-duty cleaner. that is put in vaccines. It's a heavy-duty cleaner. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you that say you got to get your flu shot, you got to get your flu shot, you got to get your flu shot, just look at an insert. And the aluminum, the thimerosal, that's the good stuff. Wait until you read about the aborted dead baby. Wait until you read about the dead babies that are put in there, or the dead monkeys that they put in there, or the X100 that's a DuPont chemical that's used in industrial cleaners. It's incredible. Sorry, I just had to rant.
Well, at least your body's gonna be clean, isn't it?
I mean, people are like,
well, then of course they're adding.
Why is my
they've
gut
got it all.
You poisoned yourself.
They've got it all. They've got it all figured out, Rex. Of course, and then of course they add sodium fluoride to our water, which facilitates the movement of heavy metals through the blood barrier in the brain. Man, I mean, it's just insanity what they're doing. We look at health rates in the United States and Canada, and you know what, buddy? When Roger Landry, of course, made this statement to me about 4 years ago that, in 1970, the United States and Canada were, without a doubt, the healthiest nations in the world. 1968, I think it was. And now we look at the stats and we are the sickest nations in the world. We lead the world in most cognitive diseases. We're close to leading the world in cancer. We lead the world in Alzheimer's. We lead the world in all kinds of great stuff. Isn't that cool? Isn't medical science really great, Rex? Isn't our medical system really working well? And of course, we spend 10 times as much on medical as the next closest country in the world. So it's obviously working, isn't it?
Well, it's an industry that is completely tainted. It's literally the medical mafia, military industrial complex that profits off of keeping people sick, but just healthy enough to pay the bills, go to work, and go to the doctor go to the doctor once a week, once a month for their checkup. And it's just, like this whole thing, all these industries that make billions and trillions of dollars feed off of keeping people suppressed, off of keeping people sick. And you know what, folks? There seems to me, looking at this from an outside perspective, from a bird's eye view, there's something more to this than meets the eye. Most people think it's just based on corruption, it's just based on greed, it's just based on money. There's something more to it, folks.
Something very sinister.
Let me add to that.
You add to that, and then I'll add my thought.
Okay, just take a seismic activity map. Take a map that shows the hot zones for seismic activity, and overlay that with the map that shows where the nuclear reactors are in the United States of America. Pull up the stratospheric aerosol injection bill that Rhode Island is attempting to pass right now, where they clearly state that 76% of the atmosphere has been destroyed because they're trying to block the sun. They're killing the planet and blocking the sun and killing you and your family at the same time because they love you so much. Welcome to the New World Order.
Yeah, I can't even wrap my mind around it. But, there's something much more sinister behind the scenes than just all this being the new norm. I mean, if you really sit back and look at it, Rex, the correlation of attacks on the human race that we now see aren't just happening by accident. And, that's a deep rabbit hole. We don't really have time to go down that one much today, but really it's not by coincidence. This isn't just the new norm. This isn't just what goes on in our society. We are really, really under massive attacks from all aspects of life. I mean, you can't get healthy food anymore. You can't breathe the air. You can't drink the water. But you can go to work and pay your taxes, folk. And you're right. I get a laugh. Lex, I don't laugh. Actually, it's sad. I see people with these little pill boxes, and they've got 3 pills for breakfast, and they've got 4 pills for lunch, and then they've got 3 more to go to bed. And I go, my God, what? Prescription drugs are now, I just read the stats for, I believe, number 3 for killer in North America now. In the United States of America, they're number 3. I mean, that's quite an achievement in my world. Hey, isn't that great? I mean, who are the criminals, folks? I mean, we could talk about cancer for hours. We could talk about that industry and what's going on with that and the cures that are out there that they have quashed from the public. It's mind-boggling, but people really, really have to look in the mirror, Rex. They really do. They have to look in the mirror and say, hey, what's coming for my children? And that's a question I that might sound corny to you guys. I don't care. But it's a question I ask myself every day. And what I can do to wake people up, to reach people's hearts and make them understand that this is something we have to address, buddy. And we do. Go ahead.
People are paying for their demise. People are paying for their imprisonment. They are paying these industries to keep them sick, and they're making them trillions of dollars. I lost a very dear friend last year. This guy would literally give you the shoes off of his feet if he knew you needed them, and he would walk home barefoot. That's the kind of guy this guy was. And this guy was raised, his parents treated him like just the most vile piece of crap ever. They were disgusting to him, and he came out to be the best person ever. Well, guess what? He was in the military, and it was hard on him, and he used to be in great shape. The guy, you'd shake his hand, and he would just crush your hand, built like an ox, but just the kind of soul. Where am I going with this? Well, his caveat was food. And he went from being super healthy to eating too much, and then combined with he would go see the doctor, and the doctor would go, oh, okay, well, I see that your blood levels are a little bit low, or you have high blood pressure, or you have high cholesterol, so I'm going to give you this drug and this drug and this drug. And then I saw him get larger and larger, and the doctors prescribed him more and more drugs. And the last drug the doctor finally prescribed him had a black label warning on it. It's called a black label FDA warning label, which is, in my opinion, the kiss of death. That's as bad as it gets. Well, guess what? Shortly after that final drug the doctor administered him, he collapsed. He couldn't move. I'm getting emotional thinking about this. He died shortly after, and they were testing his vitals like, oh, your vitals are fine. We can't figure out what's wrong with you. Oh, then they did like 20 other tests, and then they found out that his organs failed because of all these stupid drugs that the doctors had him on. The doctor couldn't just tell him, oh, maybe it'd be a good idea if you exercise. Oh, maybe it'd be a good idea if you ate organic. Oh, maybe you should just work out a little bit. Or maybe just not having him on 11 freaking drugs, he'd still be here with us. But because he took the advice of that stupid doctor, because of that doctor, oh, well, I've got this really nice title. And this, look at this license that I have behind me. I've got a really nice white jacket. Just take my advice. Just take my advice and kill yourself.
I'm getting a trip for Hawaii for prescribing this to you, too. So it's all good, buddy. I know how the industry works, Rex. It's just this, like I said, Vax is one movie that is really, really impacting people because it's undeniable information, guys. And when we talk about vaccines, what's going on with our children, how our children are being harmed, it's something that strikes me right to the heart. Any child that's harmed drives me insane. Being harmed for the sake of $1 is exactly what's happening in our society. And it's got to come to a stop. And we can stop it by becoming educated and getting our voices heard and holding our so-called elected representatives responsible and accountable.
Most doctors don't even know what's in the vaccines. A friend of mine just had a child.
I know that.
And when check this out real quick. A friend of mine just had a child. And the anesthesiologist, after they pulled the baby out early, the gal had a C-section. They made it sound like, oh, just a regular procedure. Well, a C-section isn't a regular procedure. They rip the baby out of the mother's gut, out of her stomach. They slice a big hole and rip the baby out, and the water breaks. Well, anyway, then after they pull the child out early, the anesthesiologist that said he'd been doing it for 20 years tells my friend, oh, well, every baby now has a vitamin K shot. Every baby does. We give it to every baby here. So my friend goes, let me see the insert. And this guy gets pissed off. My friend, he goes, you know what? This is serious. If that was my grandbaby, I'd kick you out of here right now. So my friend goes, oh, you're threatening me now because I want to see the insert? And he kept his cool. So the anesthesiologist gets some lady to get the insert for him. He looks at the insert. There's aluminum in the vitamin, high levels of aluminum in the vitamin K shot that they want to inject the baby with. And he goes, you're not going to inject my baby with aluminum. He goes, did you know there's aluminum in here? And he says the anesthesiologist guy got this confused look on his face, had no idea, and walked away.
Wow. Unbelievable.
Isn't that crazy? They want to inject babies with aluminum and disguise it as vitamin K.
Well, and I know what effect that would have on a fetus's or a newborn's brain, Rex. I mean, the blood barrier in children doesn't form till they're about 18 months old. So any metal contaminant that's put into a baby at that age goes directly into the brain. And then I wonder why autism now is 1 in 50 girls and 28 boys, or it's the other way around. Excuse me if I've got them backwards, but that's the numbers. And they're telling us by the year 2025, 1 in 2 children are going to have autism. Well, what kind of a society is that, guys? We're having children that are going to be a burden on society, and their parents will not be productive members of society in any shape or form, will not have a chance to live a normal life. And this is all right. This is a new norm, and you want to accept this? Come on, folks. Have a look.
Doctors won't even have it.
God,
I try and debate with doctors. I shouldn't say try, because there is no try and do. I will have a debate with any doctor about vaccines. They won't talk to me. I'll own them.
No, they won't.
I will own them. And I actually had one gal doctor once, and I didn't mean to do this. She was literally crying by the time I got off the phone with her, because she was trying to convince me that vaccines were good. And I said, vaccines are so good. How come there's hundreds of millions of dollars that are given to victims of people that have been injured from vaccines? If they're so good, then what about that? She could, get rid of smallpox. Get rid of herpes. What? What?
Well, the vaccine manufacturers say, hey, buddy, and they'll say this right to your face, there's no possibility of effects from vaccines. And they say it over and over and over again. Yet the Vaccine Industry Compensation Board was set up, and every vaccine that's sold on the market today, a little bit of money off every one of those sales goes to the Vaccine Industry Compensation Board. They paid out $6.5 billion in the last 9 years to victims of vaccines that will never harm you. What the hell are we talking about, Rex?
Read the insert. It tells you, folks. Read the insert. Don't take our word for it. Read it.
Yeah, I have, Rex, and I've taken those insert ingredients and I've cross-referenced them on my computer. And I tell you, folks, if you do that, anybody with any kind of a brain will never put that into their child. There's sites on the internet. You can go on the internet right now, Rex, and punch up vaccine inserts, and it'll bring you up a list of every vaccine on the market today, every ingredient, period. And read it, folks. Read it. I mean, it doesn't take much time. You know, you guys, people are the guardians of their children. Children don't have an option of what's being put into their body. That you are the guardian. People really have to pay attention to this stuff. Lex, go ahead.
Well, the problem is, here's what's sad, is a lot of times people don't even think to question that. That doesn't even come into their mind until after. A lot of times people don't start questioning this until after they have one or two kids, and then they realize that their children have been injured from the vaccines. It takes them a while to put the dots together, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, this makes total sense. So they start reading through the inserts, they start reading through the side effects, they start checking the timelines, then it all starts connecting. That's the unfortunate thing is, you know, let's say you're 22, 23, 25, you're just starting out, you just have a baby. You're not even going to think about that kind of stuff. And then here's where it gets worse. You know how you said very intelligent people, when they read those inserts, they probably won't give them to they won't give them to their babies. Well, guess what? I have a very intelligent friend in Israel that has a very intelligent friend that's in the is a chemist, is like has a doctorate or some high degree as a chemist. And they were talking about the vaccines. And so my friend shows his friend what's in the vaccines before he decides to give them to his children. He said, before you give them to your children, just look at the vaccines first. The dude looks at the vaccines and he still gives them to his kids. He looks at the inserts and he knows what the stuff is. And he's that conditioned, he's that brainwashed that he still does it.
I can't believe that. I find that really I find that so hard to believe, yet I'm believing it, because I've run into the same thing with other people that have looked at it and go, oh, everything's fine. They wouldn't give us anything that would possibly harm our child. They're so indoctrinated to believe in their doctor is still a good guy. To me, a doctor is the biggest hypocrite in the world, because his sworn oath is to provide the best care possible to his patient. Yet you can go into his office one week, he'll write you a prescription. You go in there the next week, he'll write you another prescription. You know, all prescriptions contain analyticals. They all store in body fat. And drug interaction, like I said, now is the third biggest killer of people in the United States of America. When I read that stat, Rex, it blew my mind. Why can't people wake up and see what's going on? Are we that dumbed down as a society? Are we that controlled as a society that we can't think for ourselves? Go ahead.
Well, I'll tell you this. I was reading through the comment section the other day when I did a live show. I was just kind of glancing because it's hard to read through all the comments as I'm doing a live show. But I did notice there was this one comment that somebody made, and man, it just, wow, felt so good. This guy said, I was on 8, and he wasn't talking to me. He was talking to somebody else in the chat. He goes, I was on 8 medications. I heard Rex's program on the Leak Project. I quit taking all of them. I'm feeling amazing now, and I'm so glad that I did. So reading that comment was almost like, it was like one of those aha moments for me. And I would never recommend anybody do anything except for their own research. I don't tell people to get a vaccine. I don't tell people not to get a vaccine. I say, do your research. Look at what's in the inserts. Check out those ingredients, and then see what those ingredients are linked to, and look at the white papers, read the science, read the data. And if you still want to do a vaccine, if you still want to get one yourself, or if you still want to give them to your children, I'm confused, but I mean, so it's not me to decide what somebody does. I think my position is more helping people get the information that they might not be ready for. I mean, that's why I started Leak Project, was to help people get information that they're not going to find anywhere else, and information that is key and important, and very well educated people from around the world, people like yourself that know about nuclear, that know about the issues, and that's why I started Leak Project. If we tell people what to do, it has the opposite effect. Give people an opportunity to make their own minds. And what I like to see is when they make the right decisions. That's priceless.
Yeah, I urge people to do their own research. Look, you don't take anything we're saying for gospel. It's exactly what Rex said, is that all we're asking you to do is to do your own research, and it doesn't take a lot of time. And when you think about it, if there is any possible negative effects from vaccines, then it would be your responsibility as an adult and the caregiver to that child to fully explore any possible detrimental effects. And that's why I get back to this movie, because I'm seeing it. I've actually showed the movie to about 12, maybe 14 people in my own house now, and everybody has had the exact same reaction. We need to look at all aspects of any program that's going on inside our society and any possible negatives. It's our responsibility. Children, like I said, don't have a choice, Rex. So I just ask people to look at it. Please take an hour and cross-reference the ingredients, or go on the website and pull up the list of ingredients in all vaccines that are on the market today. And there's an entourage of them. Look at the ingredients in every one of these vaccines and tell me if those are beneficial to the development of a child. You have to be able to come up with a logical answer. No. That's my logical answer. Whether somebody comes up with something else, I can't understand it, Rex. I really cannot understand it. But like I said, we live in a free world. Go ahead.
Here's another thing, too, is people are so scared that if they don't, that maybe their child's going to get whooping cough. Maybe their child's going to get smallpox. Maybe their child's going to get chickenpox. They just don't know what to think because they've been lied to so much. And the doctors freak them out and try and put them in this fear matrix. And then these psychopaths, if you tell them no to the vaccines, they will attempt to force you to sign something which is completely BS, that says how much risk you're putting your child in by not vaccinating them. When in reality, it's most likely the exact opposite. You're protecting your child by not doing that in many cases if you look at the inserts. And here's another thing, folks. I get people that'll say, well, I get my flu vaccine every year and I feel great. Guess what? Not everybody's body is the same. Some people do not filter through these metals and toxins like other people's bodies do. And also on top of that, each mixture isn't the same, ladies and gentlemen. Guess what? They make mistakes too. And on top of that, ladies and gentlemen, most of the vaccines now are made in China, where they love you even more than we do.
I was just going to bring that up, Rex. Well, it's very economical for Pfizer and Merck, to have their drugs now produced in China under the absolute stringent sterile conditions that we know Chinese are producing these drugs under, and how it's watched over by their government. Of course, that would all be into play, wouldn't it? I mean, China, they produce great stuff, don't they?
Well, think of what they could put in there without even telling.
Guaranteed to last 1 week. Go ahead.
Yeah, or they could be like, "Oh, oops, we don't know how that nanotech got in there. Oh, we have no idea how that, how those radioactive isotopes got in there. That was an accident. We did not mean to put in that HIV virus in that."
Or that avian bird flu, yeah. A little avian bird flu got in there. We don't know how it got in there, guys.
Yeah, sorry about putting herpes in your vaccine. Sorry.
The MSG is good for you. And so, all of it's good for you, man. Come on, formaldehyde, that's good for you, isn't it? I mean, look at it this way. All these chemicals going into our body, we're not going to need chemotherapy anymore, are we, Rex? Think of it that way.
Yeah, everybody will be like me. They'll be glowing in the dark.
Well, you know what? It is insanity. It's an insane world we live in, Rex. And herd mentality is something that we really need to deal with, guys. And like Rex said, everybody's body is different. Nobody's bodies ever reacts to the same drug the same way. And yet herd mentality is accepted in our society. We're down to the last 6 minutes of the show here. What I'd like to do, Rex, is talk about some of the other things you're doing in your project real quick and where people can find you, your sites and et cetera, and then I'll get some closing comments from you, and we'll close out the show here in about 5 minutes.
Right on. Much appreciated. So I will give my quick shameless plug. Ladies and gentlemen, leakproject.com is the website. I'm up to almost 1,000 podcasts now. I do about 4 or 5 a day. I'm working on moving that up to 10. I reach on all sorts of topics. I talk about, obviously, the chemtrails, government conspiracies. I get into a lot of science, nanotechnologies. Now, when I talk about chemtrails, I get into the actual data. I will show you the patents, the stratospheric aerosol injection data from the CIA director where he actually talked about it. I'll show you the Rhode Island bill of the bill that they're passing right now where you need to get licensing for these stratospheric aerosol injections. I've also been recently getting very deep into the Sumerian cuneiform tablets. And I've been reading the translations via Oxford scholars, and I've been connecting that to the Zechariah Sitchin stuff. I've been connecting that to the Old Testament, to the New Testament, to the Gnostic teachings. I've been reading through the Book of the Dead and studying all these ancient cultures going back all the way to the Irada civilization, which predates the Sumerians. Those are the ones that built Göbekli Tepe. They're about 27,000 BC, very, very old culture, yet very, very intelligent. And you know what's amazing is connecting all the dots with these ancient scriptures that go through all these different cultures, and the conclusions are absolutely incredible. So if you guys want to know about your origins, if you guys want to know about the Sumerian tablets, about the Anunnaki, what Oxford scholar would call the Akkadians, potato, one and of the same. If you want to know about the genetic manipulation of man, if you want to know how it intertwines with scriptures and the Bible and everything else and stuff you're not going to be taught in Sunday school, check out youtube.com/clandestine time lord, also leakproject.com. And I also do a lot of updates on radiation as well with the Geiger counter. So there you go.
Well, that's a very, very deep subject, and one day we can get into that conversation, Rex. But sounds like You've done a lot of research that I haven't done in my life, so I look forward to that conversation. You know what? It was a pleasure meeting you this week, Rex. It's just this week that I met you, and it's been a real pleasure talking with you today, buddy.
Hey, thank you.
Good to meet people that have the same passion, share the same understanding and the same concern for our fellow men that I do, and other people involved in this organization. Well, you know what, guys, this was my first sit-in for Lonnie Clark, and I hope you guys enjoyed listening to us talk today, and I hope that we maybe brought some information to your attention that you haven't been aware of in the past. I again urge people to really, if you get a chance, to get a copy of Vax the movie and watch it. It will definitely change your thinking about the vaccination industry. And what exactly is going on, and it will lead you on a journey to discovery, one that we all should be on. We should all be paying very, very close attention to this. We should all be studying stats and watching what's happened to our children. They're under attack, and that drives me absolutely insane. There's nothing that touches my heart more than seeing a child damaged, and being damaged for $1. That is something that we really, really have to put to a stop on this planet. Going forward, I have a really cool guest lined up for next week. I'm going to get Larry Woods in, and we're going to talk about. I was talking to Larry about these frequencies and what it can do to offset the effects of nuclear radiation. And Rex touched on that today. And next week I'm going to have Larry in, and we're going to talk about that. And I'm going to try and get Shaziz in on the same panel, and maybe we can come up with some viable solutions to the onslaught of nuclear radiation we see happening on our planet. I again ask you to really take time, guys, and study a hemp plant. It's something I will talk about in great detail in the future. It's something that really gives me a glimmer of hope for saving the planet. And to me, there shouldn't be anything more important in our lives right now than knowing that our children are going to enjoy the same thing that we got to enjoy on this planet. Thanks for joining me, guys. Bye for now.